Sunset Slayer by Penstroke. Chapter 4 The Backpack.
I can't say how sorry I am, Sunset.
It's okay, really. You just got overwhelmed by everything that was happening.
I know, but it's not going to happen again, I promise.
Sunset shifted her shoulder, nodding her head, but not entirely hearing what was being said. Fluttershy had been a broken record since he had woken up, apologizing profusely for what had happened. Sunset couldn't say it hadn't been ill-timed, but she couldn't hold it against Fluttershy either. It was a miracle that Fluttershy didn't wear long dresses and long-sleeved shirts to school. But Rarity talked about putting her in what was basically a bikini while wearing one herself. Fluttershy would either run from the room to find a place to hide or fainted. At least with the latter, she didn't need to try to figure out where Fluttershy had been run off to. They put Rarity in one of the half-finished dresses from one of the clothing-oriented stations. The color of the kin she seemed so intent on showing off. Then, with Sunset and Fluttershy each taking an arm, they began carrying her back to the old lab. Hopefully, Twilight had recovered and would be able to provide insight into what was going on. That, or at least Applejack could hopefully tie Rarity up so she wouldn't go rampaging around the school again. But the fact was, Rarity in this state was all that had Sunset worried. She was on Rarity's right side, and in the peripheral vision, she could see the bite marks on Rarity's neck. They sure looked like Dracula's teeth marks, the traditional pair of holes. But Fluttershy's bite had healed relatively quickly. Rarity's just remained open and oozing, like he were afflicted with a nasty infection. Was this a sign that Dracula was evolving? Did entities that were created by Equestria's magic have that ability? The thing that occupied Sunset's mind the most, however, was Rarity's behavior. Though Fluttershy was afflicted by the curse, she maintained her free will. From what they seemed, Rarity's case was different. She could apparently still make choices about how she approached situations, but her goals were not her own. She was serving a master. But they didn't fit Dracula's profile either. Except for maybe Twilight, Sunset knew the Dracula entity better than anyone else. It wasn't that smart, or at least, it never demonstrated that level of intelligence. It was comparable to a dolphin, or a really smart dog when they last encountered it. Was that because of the constant change? Because it got smarter, the curse itself became more intricate in advance?
Sunset?
Fluttershy's voice brought Sunset out of her thoughts. She had been walking on autopilot, trying to support half of Rarity's rate, while Fluttershy ended up taking the lead. Already descended the stairs to the first floor, and were now within sight of the door to Twilight's lab. Sorry, I'm just tired after using so much magic.
Are you going to be okay?
Fluttershy asked. I just need to catch my breath. She reached up and tapped her earpiece. Out of fear that Dracula or something else could jump them while they were carrying Rarity, Sunset had chosen to stay pony up. Perhaps it was not an efficient use of her remaining magic, since it took a trickle of Rarity to maintain the transformation. Still, without knowing Dracula was watching them, it was the cost he was willing to deal with. Though, with her transformed ears, her wireless earpiece was left in an odd position. They reached the exterior door when Sunset managed to hit the call button. Call Applejack. In theory, they could have easily knocked on the door, but she and Fluttershy had their hands full supporting Rarity's unconscious form. There was also the issue that in a previous mission, a spirit with voice-mimicking abilities had them all second-guessing themselves. Using their cell phones to make the call into the lab was an extra level of assurance they were the real Sunset and Fluttershy. The phone rang 4 times before it was picked up. It was uncommonly long, but for all Sunset knew, Applejack had just set her phone down and needed time to find it. Hi! Did you find Rarity in the Spike? Applejack asked, her voice coming from above Sunset's earpiece from the far side of the door. We found Rarity, but not Spike. We're already outside the lab. We need you to let us in quickly. Rarity's been bitten. She attacked us in another part of school. I had to drain her magic to knock her out. Shoot! Let's hold on a second. Applejack entered the call, and after a few seconds, there were sounds of rumbling from behind the door. Once the sound stopped, the lock clicked and the door opened. Applejack stepped into view and moved towards the trio. How did she get bitten? And where did she get that dress? Applejack turned around, bending down a little, gesturing with her hands for the others to put Rarity on her back. We don't know about the bite, but the dress is a more modest choice we made for her. Sunset held Fluttershy placed on Rarity on AJ's back. They got Rarity's arms hung over AJ's shoulders, and then reached back and hooked their hands around Rarity's leg. It was a bit of an awkward piggyback ride, considering the passenger was unconscious, But Applejack made it work and carried Rarity inside the lab. The long, narrow storage closet turned lab seemed barely able to accommodate its simple furnishings, let alone 5 people. To the right of the door was Twilight's primary desk and work table. To the left was a second desk, which stood underneath the sole window. What idea used to be an easy assemble and sell bookcase, but it had been taken apart to barricade the window. Twilight had recovered and was sitting at her old computer, tapping and clicking away as different windows flashed on and off. She turned away from her work, looking concerned at Rarity before turning her attention to Fluttershy and Sunset.
I heard you from the other side of the door. Did she really attack you?
Yes, she was even using her magic. Sunset showed her hands, which were pinpricked with tiny little scabs and other marks. We were lucky you saw it to put a safety override to our lockets. With Fluttershy being incapacitated, I wouldn't have been able to defeat Rarity without it.
Twilight held her hand. Let me see the locket. Maybe I can figure out what happened if I study Rarity's magic.
Sunset reached to the collar of her shirt, pulling the locket in its fabric loop over her head, dropping in Twilight's waiting palm.
Are you going to be able to do it without the equipment at Becca's CHS? This lab is where I first made the locket. Some of my tools are gone since they started cleaning out the place, but maybe I can MacGyver something together.
Twilight turned back to the computer and rammed through her 2 doors of the desk.
I just want to take a quick peek at the magic, hopefully without causing any more rifts to open. Sunset, you should take care of your hands,
Fluttershy said. So he'd taken some of the cardboard boxes in the room and assembled them together into a bed where Applejack was able to sit down Rarity. Even if he had outnumbered her 4-to-1, it was easier for everyone if Rarity stayed in Dreamland. Fluttershy now turned her attention to Sunset, holding the first aid kit from Twilight's backpack that was resting against the wall. Sunset smiled and held out her hands. He had yet to understand why the music in the human world seemed to inflict a toll on the user if it was struck by other magic. Twilight had a working number of theories, but none substantial evidence to back it up.
It's not as bad as it looks. The bleeding's already stopped,
Sunset said while Fluttershy began to clean the injuries. She knew denying basic care Fluttershy was offering would only make her friends worry. That and Sunset could tell that this was helping Fluttershy feel useful to the group after her fainting spell in the fight with Rarity.
There. This should help you feel better. This was there were some gloves you could wear. We don't want you to get sick because you touched some germs with it.
Fluttershy says he returned to the supplies first aid kit.
There should be gloves in the backpack,
Twilight said, while looking away from her computer.
I have a box of surgical gloves, as well as a pair of black leather ones.
What are the black leather ones for? Sunset asked, so we began walking towards the backpack.
Actually, they're yours.
Twilight took a tool to the locket, trying to pry off a piece of metal covering some of the circuitry.
You lent it to me when you were trying to teach me how to ride a motorcycle for the M classification of my driver's license.
Sunset nodded, remembering that day. Their attempts to teach Twilight ended up being a glorious failure, but the resulting escapades had been a source of fun, a lot of memories, and the only bit of property damage. She realized how she had forgotten to ask for her gloves back, though she kept forgetting to grab them out of the locker in school. Upon reaching the bag, Sunset knelt down, unzipped one of the bags, and began rummaging around inside. It was full of things that they would normally bring on a mission under Twilight's advisement. There was a flashlight, which Sunset gladly took and tucked into the exterior pocket of her jacket. Her hands pressed along the lump that was in her coat pocket. She couldn't help but glance at her friends. So far, she hadn't needed it. Though Dracula Entity kept buying her friends, the temptation to make use of it would only grow. Refocusing on Twilight's bag, Sunset resumed her search for the gloves. Yet, something was bothering her. It was something about Twilight's backpack. She paused from her search to look at the bag itself. It wasn't overly damaged or roughed up, and there seemed to be nothing wrong with it. Yet Sunset couldn't help but stare at it for a few seconds. Her mind grappled with trying to understand the bubbly paranoia that wouldn't keep quiet. Then, it snapped into her head, like a fire igniting a pool of gasoline. Why was Twilight's bag here? It hadn't been in the room when they arrived, and she, Applejack, and Fluttershy hadn't found it in the classroom where they discovered Twilight. Applejack wouldn't have left Twilight alone to go get it either. They would have gone out and go calling it first. There was no reason for the bag to be in this room. Sunset resumed her rummaging in the bag, if only to keep her own paranoias down. Still, she unsent a second pounce, glanced over her shoulder. Twilight was at her computer, fiddling with the locket. Fluttershy was behind her, watching quietly. Applejack was beside Fluttershy. They weren't saying anything, just watching. Then, Applejack turned and took a single step. So he was persisting and persistent, moving behind Fluttershy like he was trying to get a better view of what was happening. Well, Applejack hadn't been all that interested in the lockers or the inner workings before. The day Twilight tried to explain to him how everything worked, Applejack dozed off in his seat. Worse, no one seemed to be watching Rarity. She was out, but Applejack could have been watching her friend like a hawk, asking questions about why Rarity was in her dress. Sod's touch of the letter brought Sunset's eyes back to the bag. She found the gloves, quickly slipped them on, and then continued rummaging for supplies. She found a spare travel charger and put it into the exterior of her right pocket to keep her phone charged. Then, she found a folded brochure about Crystal Pep. With a quick peek inside, she saw it had a map of the school's layout. Made sense. The Twilight knew the school by heart, so she used the map to check out the rooms with the inserts. Glancing over her shoulder again, friends were still huddled around Twilight's computer. Sunset cracked the map further and took notice of the numerous notes that had been written on it. Rarity and Twilight had, according to the notes, started their search on the second floor, gone by classroom, eventually reaching the personal projects room. That was when the exit stopped. That didn't make sense. Sunset folded the map and tucked it away in her right exterior pocket, next to her photographs, before resuming her rummaging. She unzipped another pouch, just to give the illusion she was looking. Something was wrong. Twilight said they had gone to the nurse's office to get more details on the students, but the map had shown that he hadn't gone anywhere near the nurse's office. They also found Twilight on the first floor, near the entrance. Why would she be in that classroom if something happened on the second floor?
Can't you find them, Sunset?
Twilight asked.
No, I can. They just must be on the bottom.
She continued to rummage in the bag to make the appropriate sounds.
They should be in the middle pocket. Let me help you.
Sunset heard Twilight getting up from the chair, the rolling of the wheels almost mockingly pedestrian sound to accompany the looming sense of danger crawling up her spine. She heard Twilight's steps coming up behind her. She quickly took the gloves back off. Both held in her right hand. She shoved it deep into her backpack. She'd be able to pull the gloves back out the moment Twilight was close. At the same time, Sunset's left hand grabbed one of the backpack straps. It was heavy. Like the pet carrier, it would make a good blunder in a pinch. The trick of the pet carrier had been a good one. You couldn't know for sure if the barking had been real or not, but once they were in that room, it was a perfect place to spring a trap. Space large enough for Rarity's style of magic with only one exit. She could have kept them pinned down until the magic was exhausted and they were easy prey. Now they were in Twilight's old lab. A small, tight space on a single exit. That worked to the advantage of Applejack's magic. Applejack's magic was strongest through her feet. She could stomp and pin things down better than anyone, and her kicks gave a small wrecking ball a run for its money. Twilight didn't have magic, but she didn't mean she couldn't toss in a trap. She also had her own locket. Just by cracking it open, she could impassivate one of them while Applejack was fighting. If those two together were going to spring a trap, doing it in such tight quarters would be ideal. Sunset heard Twilight come to a stop behind her. She pulled the gloves on cue.
Here they are,
Sunset said as she stood up and turned to face Twilight. She smiled as she put them on.
Thanks for holding on to them.
Twilight smiled and nodded and turned back to her computer.
It was no trouble. Now, could you tell me more about Rarity's symptoms? How much they differ from what we've seen with Dracula's entity before?
Well, her bite doesn't seem to be healing, Sunset said as he began walking back towards the cure, moving cautiously as he was approaching a bear trap. Applejack was still standing behind Fluttershy, seemed to be leaning in more now that Twilight was resuming her work. Fluttershy was in the worst possible position if Sunset's paranoia was correct.
She mentioned a master. As Fluttershy can attest, when even when she's pulling up, she's never called anyone master. Right, Fluttershy?
Well, only Master Nibbler. He's this cute little hamster that someone brought into the shelter the other day. He's only there for a week while the family's on vacation, but he takes the most adorable bites out of his food. Your little girl makes it really well.
Sunset chuckled and smiled.
He sounds adorable. Though, now that I think about it, Fluttershy, maybe we should try bandaging Rarity's bite wound.
Even if it doesn't heal, it'd be good to stop it from bleeding on things.
I'll get right on that,
Fluttershy said, stepping away from the computer to get the first aid kit. That was back in Twilight's bag as well, and Sunset waited a few seconds to see if Twilight or Applejack would follow. Neither did. They remained focused on the locket, and Sunset began to doubt herself.
Was he just being too paranoid?
Maybe Twilight, in her weakened state, had let Applejack leave the room to get her back alone. Applejack could be stubborn, and if she thought it was important, she might have argued about getting the bag until Twilight finally caved. would have been especially true if the bag was close. Sunset stepped up behind Twilight, starting to feel like maybe all this entity hunting was getting to her. She looked over Twilight's shoulder, wanting to fiddle with her locket. Paranoia shifted like angry coals in Sunset's mind. Twilight could easily sabotage the locket device, and none of them would know it until it was too late. Sunset focused her eyes to wander, trying to keep herself from thinking the worst of her friend. She glanced down, and her whole body tensed, like a cat that had been cornered by a large, angry dog. She saw it on Twilight's back. It had been hidden when they entered the room, when Twilight was sitting with a proper posture in a computer chair. Now she was leaning forward, focusing on the locket. The truth was visible. They had missed something earlier. When Dracula bit in the past, it was always on exposed skin, hands, neck, and arms. But the Dracula entity was full of surprises tonight, and Sunset saw 2 holes in the back of Twilight's shirt of a familiar size that were stained with blood. He had been bitten, and he left Applejack alone with her. There was a click, and Sunset's eyes moved back to the locket. The lid popped open, and the magic from inside was flowing out. Twilight wheeled back a little in her chair, bumping into Sunset. "Shoot! I tried to release!" Those words were, perhaps, exactly what Twilight would have said if she had made a mistake. But Sunset doubted it was truly a mistake. The corrupted purple energy was flowing back to rarity. The electronics in the room were having a fit. The computer blue screened, the lights went out, and Sunset saw an orange glow behind her. Applejack was pointing up. But the color didn't look right as it glowed against the walls. Was this all a trap? The lights came back on. Fluttershy was backing away. Closing the first aid kit, she pressed herself against the other desk in Twilight's small pace. But was she backing away from rarity? Or the sight of Applejack pointing up into a vampiric form? Escape was her top priority. If Applejack and Twilight were enthralled by the Dracula entity, and had set a trap for them, then she and Fluttershy had a chance to escape. There was a chance he was still wrong, but right now, it seemed better to beg for forgiveness about the mix-up than run the risk. For the moment, Sunset couldn't help but assume that everyone in the room, except Fluttershy, was a threat. A hand rested on her shoulder. She reacted like a coiled spring had been released. In a smooth, hard gesture, she grabbed the arm belonging to the hand and rolled her body forward, throwing Applejack. Landed hard on top of Rarity, boxes crumbling under a combined weight and the force of impact. "Sunset, where are you?" Twilight began to ask. But Sunset grabbed the back of Twilight's chair and shoved her to the desk. The blow would have knocked the air out of her lungs, but Sunset didn't linger to make sure. She turned to look at Fluttershy, who wants to see another sock. "Run!" Sunset shouted, before bolting toward the door. Fluttershy might not move. She might stay and try to figure out what happened. But thankfully that wasn't the case. Fluttershy hesitated only for a moment, then began to run towards the door as well. Sunset grabbed the handle and pulled the door open. She let Fluttershy through first, then sprinted down the hallways while slamming the door shut behind her.
What's going on?
Fluttershy asked as he continued to sprint through the school. "Twilight was bitten. She had the same bite Rarity did. And I think she got Applejack, too." Well, there was a sufficient distance between them and the old lab. Sunset turned hard and opened one of the classrooms. She hurried Fluttershy in aside, keeping a panic watch onto the hallway they came from, before finally going into the classroom herself. Once inside, the curtain of the door window went down, and a chair went up against the handle, blockading the way in and out of the room. Only then did Sunset pause a moment to catch her breath. "Okay, I think we lost them." Fluttershy nodded, wearing a weak smile that devolved into a bit lip as she held the first aid kit with both hands. There were a few moments of silence between them before Fluttershy spoke.
Not that I'm doubting you, but are you sure they were bitten? They didn't seem to be acting any different than me.
"I saw the holes on Twilight's back," Sunset said as she double-checked the door, ensuring it was properly blocked. "That and Twilight's bag wasn't in the room when we left her and Applejack. She had to go looking for Rarity and Spike. Applejack would have left Twilight alone, knowing there was danger around. So Twilight must have bit Applejack, went to get the bag, and set a trap for us."
But why would they need the bag for that?
Fluttershy asked. "I don't know. Probably to act as some sort of distraction," Sunset said as he stepped away from the door and leaned against the nearby teacher's desk. "Twilight would ask one of us to get something out of it, and while one of us was rummaging inside, he'd pounce on the other. There'd be 2 versus 1. He'd be able to overpower whoever was left. Applejack moved up behind you while I was looking for the gloves. If I hadn't been glancing back so often, she might have already tried to bite you."
Sunset? Fluttershy? Where did you go?
Sunset tense, bringing a finger to her lips to shut Fluttershy, before she crept up to the classroom door and peeked out the lower curtain. She saw Twilight round the corner. Sunset stepped away from the door, not taking her eyes off of it. Then she came to a stop next to Fluttershy. She ponied up in preparation for the looming confrontation. The steps in the hallway stopped. They lost track of Twilight's position. Sunset strained to hear more intently. The rush of air in and out of their lungs as they breathed stood out against the silence. The jingle of the zipper on her coat made Sunset tense. Fluttershy took a step. The sound of her shoe against the door made it feel like they were ringing to announce where they were. Sunset still couldn't hear anything from the hallway outside. A sudden pounding on the door made Fluttershy and Sunset jump. "I know you're in there!" Twilight shouted. My locket's magic tracker spiked when you ponied up." "You're not getting in here, Twilight!" Sunset shouted back at the door. "I saw your back! I know you're bitten!" "I am not! My back doesn't even hurt, and—" There was a pause in Twilight's words. It lasted a few agonizing seconds. Then she knocked on the door again. "Sunset, let me in. We can talk about this. You can't go anywhere unless you want to jump out a window. And if I really wanted to get in and bitten by Rarity, do you really think I'd be knocking?"
She does make a point.
Fluttershy said quietly. Sunset frowned, not liking the prospect of letting in the vampire they had just escaped. Still, she moved to the door. First, she raised the blinds, seeing Twilight standing outside the door. Looked left, right, up and down, showing that Rarity and Applejack weren't nearby. She then focused her gaze on Twilight. "You don't come in until I say so, get it? Got it. Good!" Sunset grabbed a chair that was pinned against the door and pulled it away. She left it resting near the teacher's desk, before backing up to front of the door a second time. Once she was next to Fluttershy again, she signaled to Twilight. "Okay, you can come in!" So Twilight opened the door slowly, coming into the room with her hands up and a locket exposed on her neck. She took a few steps, turned to face Sunset, but did not get within arm's reach. "There, I did what you said. Can we talk? If you're going to ask us to join you as vampires in service to your master, then I'm sorry, the answer's no," Sunset said with a slight snarl. Twilight shook her head, gently lowering her hands. Sunset tensed, but Twilight didn't seem to be reaching for a weapon or playing a trick. She winced as her hand touched the small of her back. "I didn't notice the bite marks. They don't hurt, and they're not one of Dracula's common bite persistence. The only thing I can think of is the entity cornered me and Spike in the classroom. I don't remember what happened in detail. It's still a bit fuzzy. But I think I shielded Spike with my body. I faced my back to the Dracula entity, and that's probably when he bit me. I don't know what happened after that. I was unconscious when you and Fluttershy found me, after all. The only question I came to the clue is that the entity tried to enthrall me, like he did with Rarity, and it failed. Probably because I don't have magic. We established before, but Dracula's entity's curse affected Fluttershy because it had magic. That's why none of his other victims have grown fangs and started thirsting for blood. I may very well be cursed, but because I can't pony up, the curse can't enact its full effects on me." "That's one theory," Sunset said. "The other is that you're lying to make us lower our guard. That way Rarity and Applejack can swoop into the room to get us. I know something happened, Twilight." She reached into her coat and pulled out the map. "You said you checked for information in the nurse's office, but I see your exits on the map. You never got into the nurse's office." "We went to the nurse's office before nightfall," Twilight said. Her voice was keeping her calm and reassuring. "I got the notes before Rarity and I went to dinner, so I could read them while we got something to eat. We didn't start doing our search or using the map until we came back here after dark." "What about your bag? How did it magically appear in your old lab?" Twilight blinked, her gaze wandered. She adjusted her glasses, pushing them back up against her nose in an everlasting struggle against gravity. "My backpack? Rarity and I both had our backpacks when we came here. But we decided to stow mine under my old work table lamp in case something happened. After you found me and left me in the lab with Applejack, I told her to get my water bottle from it. She must have left it sitting against the wall, instead of putting it back under the table." Sunset's eyes narrowed, and she lifted her hand to her head as her mind went over everything she had seen. Had she made a mistake? No, she couldn't have. But what if she did? What if finding Rarity like that, and if hunting Dracula, made her conscious? She didn't want to see anyone else get cursed by Dracula. Yet before they even got to the school, Rarity had been bitten. It was a worst-case scenario. No reason to think Twilight had somehow avoided the curse. But the facts Twilight presented were true. They had yet to find a case of someone getting cursed unless they had pre-existing magic. "Fluttershy,"
Let me see your locket, Sunset said, holding her hand. Fluttershy hesitated, but nodded her head. She shifted the first aid kit into one hand, and used the other to take the locket off her neck. She gave it to Sunset, and promptly turned to face Twilight. I'm going to try and drain you of magic. If you've really been cursed, then you'll have some magic in you. If it doesn't work, then I'll believe you. Twilight nodded. That logic aligns with what we know about entities in this situation. She held out her arms, completely over her head. Go ahead. Sunset put both hands on the locket, pressing the necessary buttons to trigger the safety override. They cracked it open and held it out. Seconds passed and the device remained inactive. Sunset's ears flattened, and her hand trembled as a little on her grip as the device weakened. She had made a mistake. She closed the locket and passed it back to Fluttershy. I'm so sorry. I just thought... Sunset's heart skipped a beat. They rushed to the door out into the hallway. You didn't bring Applejack with you? No, I ran after you as soon as I caught my breath. By the way, I think you bruised a rib. Twilight instantly touched her side and winced, and quickly pulled her away. Then that means you left her a Rarity, who was about to wake up because she got her magic back. Sunset looked at Twilight, and Twilight stared back at Sunset for a few seconds. Their eyes widened as the realization hit her. Fluttershy made the connection as well, her hand raising to muffle the quiet gasp. The trio broke into sprints, running out of the classroom and down the hallways, back towards Twilight's lab. Sunset was in the lead, powering ahead of the other two. She reached the intersection that led to the other lab. Her hood slid across them as she made a turn. She rushed towards the open lab door, a few old papers fluttering against the wind she created. Applejack! Applejack! Sunset turned her head, looking to each corner of the room. The room was vacant. She was hit with a sinking feeling at the realization where Applejack and Rarity were gone. No. Sunset turned and ran back up the lab, blowing past Fluttershy and Twilight, who had his minutes to catch up. She reached the intersection connected to the lab's little alcove above the rest of the school. She looked in each direction, trying to see or hear something. She brought her hand to her head, running her fingers through her hair as her breathing became more rapid. Rarity got Applejack. Rarity got Applejack, and it's all my fault! Sunset wordlessly followed Twilight as he retreated to the lab to figure out the next move. After helping to barricade the door with a second desk, she sat on top of the same desk and leaned her back against the door. The world was out of focus for her. She closed her eyes, unable to bring herself back to look at the room. Yet the sounds of the room died, and Sunset to true seclusion she wanted. She could hear Twilight tapping on the old mechanical keyboard as her chair squeaked. Fluttershy's footsteps drifted in volume as she paced the room, each of her steps accompanied by the rattle of the medkit. A few times Fluttershy's pacing brought her close. Each time Sunset could hear her shy friend stop and linger within arm's reach. But Fluttershy never said a word. She would just stand there for a few seconds, then the sound of her hoof steps would begin pacing as she resumed. Truthfully, Sunset didn't want to talk to anyone. She had made a grave error. She didn't even want to look at her friends at the moment. She didn't realize at the time, but after finding Rarity had been bitten, her paranoia had been on a hair trigger. All it had taken was one thing to set her mind down the worst possible path, to a scenario where not just one, but 3 more of her friends had been bitten by Dracula. It drove her to take action. In the process, she inserted someone close to her face to become reality. Twilight stopped tapping her keyboard. Fluttershy, what's the status of Rainbow and Pinky?
Sunset texted him a while ago.
The rattling of the first aid kit continuing during the first part of her words stopping.
They were taking the bus here. I can't remember when we texted them.
Can you check when you sent those messages? Though her eyes were still shut, Sunset was almost certain Twilight was looking at her. She leaned forward before opening her eyes, assuring her gaze was pointing at the door. And she pulled out her phone and tapped on the screen a few times to bring up text history. It was all 20 minutes ago. That means they should be here in 10 minutes, assuming the buses are running on schedule. Twilight went back to typing on her computer. Ideally, we need to try and leave this room and meet them outside the front gates. Does Applejack know you texted Rainbow and Pinky? Does she know they're arriving?
No.
Fluttershy answered with a small shake of her head.
Applejack knows they're coming, but we never got a chance to tell her when they get here.
Twilight made a few clicks with her mouse. Sunset, text Rainbow again. Break down what's happening and get an update. Ask her when the bus is on. See some traffic reports about some accidents on the side streets involving a bus. With updated ETA, we'll hopefully have the advantage. Can I also have that map of the school back, please? Sure. Sunset reached into her jacket, holding that map, and held it out to Twilight. She couldn't bring herself to stand. Susie did her best to stretch her arm out as far as possible. Twilight had to lean over as well, but I was able to get it. Sunset pulled her hand back, couldn't help but reach into her coat. She felt the lump in her coat pocket. Her little personal secret. What was she thinking? Bringing this to the school with her friends around. What if she decided to use it instead of running into the room? What if she did use it? She was wrong and ended up hurting one of her friends. She was more of a danger to everyone else than Dracula was. She was so stupid to get it. Even Principal Celestia agreed with her proposal. At the very least, she should have told her friends by now. But did she really want to burden them with the knowledge? She tried not to think about it, focusing back on her phone as she tapped out a message to Rainbow Dash. Okay, I think our best bet is the exit in the wrestling gym. Applejack and Rarity might be guarding the front doors, but they don't know the school well enough to be aware of any other ways out. I say when we get over there, get outside and meet Pinky and Rainbow at the front gates. When Sunset's warning, they should wait for us outside. We can all meet up, ensure everyone understands the situation, then come up with a new plan of attack.
I think this is a good idea,
Fluttershy said. Twilight turned her seat, smiling. Great, because I need you to pony up. Fluttershy withered like a flower under the harsh sun.
You want me to pony up, but why?
When you use your magic, your senses become superhuman. You can see in the dark and have essentially sensory hearing and smell. If we're going to sneak out, we can't risk using flashlights. That would give our way up persistent. We also need to know if Rarity or Applejack are following us. If we want to get outside safely, without any more surprises, we're going to need your help. Normally, Sunset would have spoken up. First, I didn't like ponying up for a reason. Brought out the hunger, and the last thing they needed to do in this situation was stop so she could feed, especially when there were other vampires that could be drawn to the smell. But Sunset couldn't muster her voice to utter a single word in protest. Their priority was to get outside and get back up from Pinky and Rainbow. After the mess he created, it would take all of them to clean it up. Fluttershy clenched his first aid kit to her chest like a teddy bear. She looked at Sunset, back at Twilight, then down at her shoes. She made no move beyond that until Sunset's phone jingled, including its text message. It's Rainbow, she said as he began to read out loud. Some coons got on the bus to try and rob us. They didn't have weapons. Just the toy guns I could tell were cheap plastic. Some burly construction guys on the bus jumped them when I shouted the guns were fake. They're pretty cool. They were worried about us, but I told them we were fine. Pinkie Pie gave them cupcakes. I'm still trying to figure out where she was keeping them. Bus can't move until the police come. Bus driver says they should be arriving and done taking our statements in 30 minutes. After that, the police will take us where we need to go. Pinkie and I will have them drop us off a few blocks away from the school at some random house. If they try to walk us in, we'll run. I'll pony up and we'll fly away before we can figure out what can happen. I'm not a big fan of them bringing police close to the school during all this, Twilight said, Sunset fast ringing. On the other hand, it is the best option if they're going to arrive here as soon as possible. Also, if they leave the scene of the crime before providing their statements, they'll just make the police look for them. I'm going to have to guess they'll be here in 45 minutes. That gives us plenty of time to get to the front gate without rushing. Have you told them about Rarity and Applejack? I was just about to, Sunset said, having already brought up the on-screen keyboard to type out the message. Good. They'll know not to come inside looking for us. Now, we just have to get out the gate. Twilight took a look at Fluttershy, who had hardly moved during the conversation. Fluttershy tensed upon realizing Twilight's gaze was back on her, and for a few seconds she didn't say or do anything, but then sucked in a deep breath, held it, and nodded her head before holding her the first aid kit. Twilight took the kit, and with her hands free, Fluttershy began the process. She stood perfectly still in this area of the room, her head still pointing at the door. Though it was hard to see through her hair, Sunset caught a glimpse of Fluttershy's gemstone studs, glinting on her body as it was shrouded in a bright sunshine yellow glow. Yet, as per new norm, the aura began to darken. Fluttershy arched her back, gasping a little like something had just kicked her in the spine. Her equine ears changed to be more bat-like. Fangs grew at length to the same speed her hair was growing. When her wings formed, they were not soft and feathery, but webbed and leathery. Fluttershy almost collapsed to the last throes of transformation completed, starting her eyes as she stumbled to the floor. Sunset and Twilight both began to go up to help her, but before they could lend a hand, Fluttershy began to stand. She brushed the back of her hair from her face and opened her eyes to reveal two piercing, red pupils. She took a few deep breaths, her hands moving with the motion of air as it flowed in and out of her body.
I smell blood.
Fluttershy said, quivering a little.
I smell blood from Twilight, but it's okay. I ate before I came. I'll be okay.
She took another few deep breaths, then closed her eyes and began sniffing the air as her ears twisted and turned on top of her head.
Here, metal. Clicking metal, sliding metal, and fabric. Here's Randy's voice. She's excited but far away. She's above us, I think, in that direction.
First I looked at him hand and pointed. I bet she's gone back down to the career development room. That's why I said, isn't that where you two found Rarity in the first place? Sunset nodded as he got up from the desk. There was no time to be moping. Not one of the three of them needed to get out. Yeah, and I bet I know why she's there. She made outfits for me and Fluttershy when the thing called Masters turned us into vampires. She's probably making outfits to put on her customized outfit. That's the thing I noticed about the new variety of the curse. Even as she now serves a master, she's still Rarity, and fashion's always at the front of her mind. Then this is probably our best chance to get to the wrestling gym. So I stood up from her desk chair and worked quickly. She gave the map back to Sunset and placed the first aid kit back in her backpack, slipped her bag on, adjusted the straps, and nosed her glasses back up against her face as she took a look at Fluttershy and Sunset. Let's get that desk away from the door and get going!